Hello, everybody. It's the Nightwing at Way of Life Esports coming at you guys with another League of Legends video here today. We are going to be talking about the World's 2020 quarterfinals day 1 through 4 thoughts and opinions. So we just had the quarterfinals for the 2020 World Championship wrap up today with G2 clapping GenG and sending them back home to Korea to teach them a lesson. So overall, I normally don't actually have someone else here with me, doing these type of thoughts and opinions. But today I am joined here by Buff Studman, whatever his name that he'll choose wants to be. Eventually, you're going to need your own name, actually.
Really?
Eventually, yeah, because what are they going to call you? Just
They
LS?
can just reference me, yeah. It just kind of references that one guy.
They'll call you, like, the LS wannabe or something like that.
Yeah, I'll be the, what is it called? The cheap version of him. But, do you have anything you want to say before we start on that?
Not really. The quarterfinals, I think most of them went as predicted.
I think all of them went somewhat believable. Like, nothing was surprising. Like, even the Suning versus JDG, I thought it could happen because, again, this is a meta that's suited specifically for them. I wasn't surprised. Like, all of them, in my opinion, every one of them, besides maybe the Suning one, went exactly how I planned it. Even Suning, I actually picked them in my pick'em, so I guess nothing.
Well, it's crazy because, like, we'll get to that Suning series because I actually think the most interesting series on here was the top esports versus Fnatic series. I think that was the most interesting because, like, how Fnatic came out strong in the first 2 games and how the match ended are completely different. I think that was the most interesting series so far.
I do want to point out, I think the reason this came out so far is honestly really well done on the coaching staff of Fnatic. We see in the first game, they pick Orange, so it's actually counterproductive, like counter pick of Singed, which actually, if you throw the W down on Singed, he can no longer use the second part of his ult. So that pretty much negates every single point of having an Ornn on your team. Like, he can't use his ult, and like all he is a stat booster at that point in time. The second game, they let them have the Ornn. I mean, they picked the Ornn themselves, and then they got Sylas, but, Sylas is a really another pretty strong character in Ornn because he can steal his ult. But then they picked the Braum, so pretty much only one of them has an Ornn. He essentially just jumps on the backline, and he can stop the ult from being able to go into it. So, like, again, they were able to play against that point of it. They pretty much negated the majority of top esports picks on that. One thing I want to give credit to Europe right now is they are the single most intelligent when it comes to the drafting phase so far that I've seen this year. Like, they've 100% been the most adaptable. They've been the most kind of unique in their picks. And honestly, it only came down to them getting severely outplayed in the last 3 games because, just like honest, the matchups were unfortunate. Like, the Jaculov being able to dash into the middle of the team, dishing out damage and getting out right at the last second, and then right after that, Karsa goes in, gets an extremely fast assassination, and then flashes out without getting himself killed. Like, all these things happen in rapid succession, and you really can't, really can't see too many players in the world being able to pull that kind of stuff off. Like, I really did like the picks. Again, I want to give credit. This is kind of like the misfits of 2017, where they picked against SKT, where they picked a lot of unique picks and were able to push it to 5 games. Like, I think this was a very one-sided in terms of skill discrepancy kind of matchup, but they were able to go through the drafting phase. They were able to execute early game comps, and the reason I think they started losing is because they got extremely disrespectful in their picks and play style, and they started trying to pretend that they were, like, they tried to play equal
G2?
teams. Yeah,
they try to play like G2 style that everyone keeps saying that they should probably adapt, but
I don't know.
Let's start with the first day's quarterfinal match, which was Damwon versus Dragon X. This was pretty much a foregone conclusion that Damwon was going to win this series. Now, we've actually talked about this. I actually think that Dragon X weren't as bad as they showed in this specific series. Yeah. I actually think that them being in a group like that, where you have teams like FlyQuest and Unicorns of Love, they didn't exactly punish Dragon X in ways that you saw that they could have. So Dragon X isn't really getting to be pushed to the limits.
I don't know. They played top.
They're only able to face top and get pushed to limits in like one bet, like
2 games. 2 games is a pretty okay amount.
I think that we probably would have had like
Damwon didn't have anybody besides 2 games of JDG.
I mean, there was points where like they were contested at least during like skirmishes,
I don't
but
know. I
you
don't
didn't
know.
really see that like in the Dragon X group. Like it was pretty much just
FlyQuest
like
was substantially better than Rogue. Like
I mean, I
even
think
what's up?
I think that Dragon X probably would have had a better showing if the competition in their group was a little bit higher. So say like if you have a Fnatic in top esports group with Dragon X. I think that Dragon X actually elevates their gameplay. I think the competition in the group was so low outside of top. Dragon X weren't really getting challenged at various points during the
I don't
game.
know. I mean, I feel like they had one of the hard. If we look back on group stages, they had one of the hardest groups. Like that
Only
was
because
actually even
only because top
no.
esports.
Even FlyQuest was better than a lot of the tier threes in the rest of the groups. Like
That's actually true. That's
that's
actually true.
like like realistically, you can't really ask for like a harder group for them because honestly, like all around, all the groups were kind of equal besides Group C and A. Like
But there's just like
Group
certain
C
things they weren't
mostly.
getting like there's certain things they just weren't getting punished for in their
I mean, that's just
game.
that's honestly how tier threes and tier fours.
I mean, like Piosik randomly hitting his Kindred ultimate, like those things would get literally scrutinized if you do these against like in like your own region, but they
I,
don't get punished because like
I don't
unicorns and
know.
FlyQuest just didn't
I
punish.
like all around. I mean, unicorns and FlyQuest. I mean, they definitely like the FlyQuest was able to take a game off Top Esports, so I do want to give them a little bit of credit. Again, it all came down to the fact, in my opinion, that I mean, I don't know. I don't want to give them slack because I don't feel like their group was any easier than the rest of them. Like, I think that Group A was moderately difficult because Team Liquid stepped it up. Group B was stupid easy. Group B was the easiest one if we look back on Worlds. The bottom two teams, and that's the group that Damwon has, so we can't give them that excuse. Their competition didn't even have. They had the weakest group in the entire tournament, and like all around, still were able to
But the
play.
issue with Damwon is Damwon didn't play down to their competition. Damwon
That's
just only played
I
at the
don't know.
level that
I
was
feel like
given.
that's literally Damwon's playstyle is literally if you don't engage on them, they just play the game out. If you engage on them, they just skirmish with you. Like they just kind of adapt to their enemies. And that's the reason they were actually able to drop off a game to JDG because JDG wants to scale into the game and Damwon kind of lets them at some points in time. And that essentially just threw them into a situation where they got into a bad point of the game. Like I think the reason they lost this series, I agree with you. They played worse than they were. Like this is not the Dragon X we saw in group stages even. Like I feel like they played better in group stages, but again, we saw a situation where Dragon X was trying to transition their playstyle into faster pace inside of group stages. We got into the knockout stage. I don't think they initiated really once at the beginning of the halves of the games.
I mean, I guess it just shows you that best of ones are probably just worthless in terms of seeing an actual team strength.
I
Because,
don't
like,
know.
I mean, you can take little things from what Dragon X were doing in their best of ones and go, okay, they can play like this if they don't feel like they're pressured. I think they only played faster in the group stage was because they really didn't feel pressured by the other two teams. So you don't need to show much.
I
Like
don't know.
they didn't really. Did they really need to show
I
much against
think
Unicorn?
the
They didn't.
reason I mean, I actually completely disregard this. I don't think the bottom two teams had anything to do with it. I think the reason they stopped playing fast paced is because they realized they placed one of the fastest paced teams in the group in the tournament in top and weren't able to take a game off them. And they realized we're not good at this, and they just got in their heads and stopped playing like that. When realistically, that was their best choice was to try to keep doing that. Like they just let Damwon steamroll them, and they looked like JDG in groups in the first week. Like honestly, this is not this is Dragon X should have kept doing what they're doing. They didn't work on JDG. I think they got in their own heads, and that's why they kind of swapped into a more passive playstyle. It was frustrating.
For me, like I think that Dragon X could have made this a 5 game series if they played the way they did in their group stage, or at least made it a close best of 5. Because
I don't know.
when you saw Piosik popping off, when you saw Cheeria playing the way he was in group stages, I mean that's why I said best of ones are maybe pretty much worthless in terms of really seeing a team's actual strength. I think to really see a team's actual strength, it would come from a best of 5 or multiple best of 5s, and multiple best of 5s are the reason why people came to the conclusion of that's why Dragon X were going to lose. It was after seeing multiple best of 3s and best of 5s of seeing what their ceiling is.
I mean, I think if we come down to that, we can look at the best of 5s, and we saw that Suning was in better shape. We look at the previous best of 5s in between them and JDG, and JDG came out on top because that was a good choice to
But Suning did get top 3. Suning got top 3 though. It wasn't like they were.
They got demolished when they faced like the top 2 teams. Like
I mean that's to be expected.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is when we get into the world stages and the meta kind of slightly shifts, it's a very slight shift into a faster pace kind of. I don't even know if the meta really shifted mostly more so as they kind of had to adapt to the other regions' playstyles on top of it. I think it all came down to the fact that Suning actually was really well adapted to play this kind of playstyle, and JDG's wasn't prepared. Like, honestly, I think that best of ones really do show the state of the teams. And like, honestly, if you think about it, best of threes are just 3 best of ones, and that's realistically what it is. That's the reason I would say that kind of stuff.
It's more bigger sample size.
The only reason it's like that.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Like Longzhu, right? Longzhu were 6-0 in 2017 World 2017 group stage, and they got smacked around by Samsung Galaxy.
Well, Samsung Galaxy put it together, man. That macro play they put it together was phenomenal.
You know what I'm trying to say, right?
I don't agree with it though. That's why I'm saying this.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, you could do really well.
You can make references, but like, I think there's also a lot of counterpoints to what you're saying like that.
There's not really though, because what I'm trying to explain is you can have good best of 1 showing and then best of 5s look like trash.
You can also have bad best of, like. Are you saying? I'm saying. Usually, for the most part, if you're good in best of 1s, you're probably going to be good in best of 5s. We look at 2015 SKT, completely smashed that, and they did really well. 2016 SKT, 2017 Samsung Galaxy did well in groups too. 2018 IG did really well at the beginning. Yeah, they did.
They looked okay. They looked okay in the stage.
I don't agree.
Okay.
I mean, they still won the group.
They almost lost a few games to the wildcard team in that group.
One game. I don't know about the few. I mean, like, honestly, if you come down to it, most of the time...
Last year they got second. They lost to RNG twice.
RNG looked really good. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, as an indicator for, like, best of ones don't show everything.
They don't show everything, but they are a very good... Like, I don't agree with the concept of them not being an indicator of strength, because, again, if we look at that, we can look at a lot of the best of ones inside of NA. And we honestly knew who was the best teams going into playoffs by the end of it. Like, honestly, we saw the skill discrepancy between TSM when they put it together, they're able to beat everybody. The top 2 teams in FlyQuest and Team Liquid looked really strong going into playoffs, and it's obvious. I mean, even it really didn't change going into the playoffs, except the fact that TSM was actually able to put it together. Like, I think all around, like, it comes down to the fact best of ones show stuff, but again, the reason best of 5s are slightly different is because the adaptability you're able to do inside of the drafting phase. When you lose a game, you can kind of ban out the kind of things that really made you frustrated, and that's why, like, if it was a best of 1, Fnatic would have won, obviously, because they were able to pick that Singe and they were really counter pick what Top was able to throw at them. And that's why I actually appreciate the fact that it was a best of 5, because again, you can only have if you can come up with 3 comps that it completely shut down an enemy comp. I think it's really smart. But they never got to that point. They kind of ran out of options, I feel like.
All right, so that's Dragon X versus Damwon on day 1. I think this was a foregone conclusion. I even said 3-0. I mean, we already saw this match like about a month ago, so we already know how it's going to go in general. But I do want to give credit to Piosik. He did look a lot better. I think that if Dragon X want to actually be a team that wins an LCK title, I don't know if they're going to make franchising, because the LCK is going to be franchised in 2021. You might want to actually get a new top laner. I think Summit or Keen might be in your horizon if you want to get a carry top laner that can play weak side and strong side without being a player that's going to get demolished by jungle pressure.
His best character in that series was probably Jax, to be completely honest, and he played pretty decently well in it. He had a lot of good engages, and he was a killer backline.
I think there's a ceiling with Doran.
You know what? I actually have seen glimpses of him being able to be decent, but it really kind of falters every once in a while. It's really surprising me, because when he first came into the scene, I really believed in him, because he showed a lot of talent. When next season he really didn't look great, and then this season, this next season, he didn't really look great in the regular season, but he actually, again, when you put him on a carry character, he actually does pop off sometimes against the lower characters, but he can't beat those top top laners, and that's the big problem.
Right. Going on to day 2.
Time limit or something?
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're trying to keep everything a little fast-paced today.
Oh, fast-paced. I got a lot to say. Suning versus JDG. This was the only match I got wrong. I did have Suning first. I should have just kept it.
I mean,
but
That's the whole thing about it. There's reasonable reasons to think whether or not JDG would win. There's reasonable reasons to think that Suning would win. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. I think that everybody wants to be right instead of being right for the right reasons, and I don't like that. I did pick Suning. I had very big problems with actually keeping them there because, again, we had seen their inability to actually adapt to the drafting phase, and we saw their inability when Zoe wasn't on Angel. There was a lot of problems, but again, when it came down to it, we saw a lot of weaknesses in what's his name, in the mid lane. What's his name?
Angel?
What? Not Angel.
Angel?
No.
For
JDG.
Yagao.
Yagao actually, again, when it came down to the fact that he had to play something other than Zoe, he looked really good on Zoe. He's one of the best Zoes in the world. I think that's without a doubt.
I was never ever judging his strength of just Zoe. I saw his playstyle and I was like, you can just Larson was able to go toe to toe with him.
Larson was never able to go toe to toe with that. I didn't see a game like that.
I'm just saying like
he has.
I think some of the EU mid laners could probably give him a run for his money.
I think he has 4 to 5 champions where I think he's world class on. But the thing about it is, not all of them are meta right now. I think his LeBlanc is extremely good. I think his Zoe's really good. I think his Azir is really good. Like, all around, he has a lot of good champs he can play around. But again, when you get him off those champions, I think he looks significantly weaker. He doesn't look as strong as, like... And again, like, the problem is that a lot of the Chinese top laners... I mean, every single one of the Chinese mid laners is a world-class Zoe. Every single one of them. So that's the big problem with Yagao. He actually has a lot of weaknesses when it comes to his champion pool in that aspect. I think the big thing that I took out of this series is the fact that, again, I do want to point out SOFM got caught out a few times. I think that was again, that kind of goes with his play style. He really tries to test the limits and push everything to like the highest amount of DPS he can. But again, I think he played incredible in some of the team fights. Like just the perfect, like frame perfect auto attack cancels and all that stuff inside of the river on Baron. Like I was just completely impressed. Like, he'll actually sacrifice his flash just to get an optimal amount of DPS out on somebody, just not actually killing them, just going in on them and then having to flash out so they can't contest the objective they're going to. Like, we've seen him a few times do, but again, when the Bard tunnel went in and he went over to the left side a little too far, he got caught out.
I mean, I think there's ways in SOFM's gameplay where you can exploit him.
I think he has one of the least exploitable gameplays in the entire jungle. Like his pathing's incredible. Like I think when it comes down to it, the only exploitable thing you can do is just massively gank the side lanes while because he'll try and do like dragons. Like I think all around he's an objective focused jungler, but at the same time he does really counter jungle a lot, and he's always seems to be in the right position to counter gank. Like I don't know, like if you're gonna talk about a counter, like a what's it called, like a exploitable jungler, you have to talk about the likes of like Klid and like Yankos right now. Like those are the most exploitable junglers, and we obviously saw that happen. I think
that if you're Suning right now, you need SOFM to kind of clear up those weaknesses about getting caught out. Because in game 1 of Suning versus JDG, he literally stopped hitting the Baron, went over the actual mountain terrain.
But they stopped doing Baron at that point in time. I want to point out, they just stopped doing Baron. Everybody was over the wall. So
but I mean, him dying in that position through the game.
He got hit by a Zoe bubble on the other side of the wall. He jumped over because he was trying to get out of the Baron pit, because again, you take extra damage. He didn't want to get insta-killed. But again, he walked over a little bit too far. But at the same time, there was 2 other people on the other side of the Baron pit. I don't really blame him for that. I think that was a moderately poor situation. But again, that is the whole problem with Yagao's Zoe, is it's incredibly good. He was able to pick off a lot of people that game, and that's just kind of the problem.
That's the only game they won. That's the only game. Yeah,
it was a really good play on his point. But again, this is the way SOFM plays. It is really, if you can play perfectly, he will keep in mind all these things. If you can play it perfectly and he makes a mistake, there is a point in time where you can do it. But I don't think banking on trying to kill him is a good idea, because his mechanics and reaction time is so quick. Like,
well, what has shown people at this World Championship, other than the other World Championship, was that if you can get a good draft early on, have strong level 1 champions, and invade and put the jungler behind to a point where he can't really do much, I think that's kind of what...
I don't know. I saw a few cheeses, but like I don't think the level 1s are a sustainable thing. Like again, everybody invades with their strong level 1 comp because you have the ability to. But again, they stopped doing that towards the second half of the what's it called? Maybe Team Liquid did it a few times, but like for the most part, most people stop doing it because it's really just a cheesy way to get in a few wins so you can get into the next round.
I
Like,
personally think that like JDG massively underperformed to most of the expectations people set for them.
I actually think one of the weaknesses they had again was a big problem was the fact that first of all the mid laner champion pool, but it's what one of the actual underperformances with the bot lane. This is actually what lost them the entire
I
series.
told you they were good in laning phase, but outside of
No,
laning
no,
phase, they
no.
made
That's the
a lot
actual
of
problem.
mistakes.
They never laned well. They never laned well this entire like worlds for the most part.
I thought going in they would have good laning, but they
they were
always made bad decisions outside of
no,
laning
no, no.
phase.
I think they were consistent. They just weren't outstanding. Like the reason they looked so poor was in comparison to Jackie Love and all these ADCs, they're just not as good. Like I want to like again. I think the big problem with this team is the fact that Kramer and whatever. God, man, I can't remember all these names.
Loken and Love Mal.
Loken and Love Mao. Thank you. Like I think
good thing you have me here. Otherwise, you'd be struggling.
yeah, I'm really bad with names. That's my big thing. Like for the most part, I think that they're statistically, not even statistically, like all around, they were the most dominant inside of laning bot lane inside of China, which is kind of surprising considering the talent pool in the bot lane. But at the same, like obviously you've seen the exploitable weaknesses of some of the top teams, like top esports has a weak side, bot side. But like they were the most dominant bot side laning phase, and it really didn't show in this World Championships. We didn't really get to see that put on display, and I don't think it had anything to do with steeper competition because again, most of the ADCs in this Worlds don't match up to this bot lane.
It shifted to utility for Loken, and
It really
I think
was the utility the entire year.
I mean, he excelled better on the other picks, but
what?
I mean,
it's been utility the most. Like again, Ashe has been in meta since the beginning of the season. We have Senna, who's actually shifted slightly more, like out of the like again, she's still one of the biggest picks, but she got nerfed to go pre going into Worlds. Like a lot of these utility ADCs have been in meta since the beginning of the season, and I think all around it's really kind of been aggravating. I don't like utility ADC metas because it just kind of negates the ability for you to outplay somebody. But like I don't know. I really did think this is one of the biggest problems with JDG was the underperformance on the bot lane. They can play around a weak side mid laner because they always have, and they really do know how to transition into the mid game. But like the bot lane not laning well actually left a large gap in pressure they had, and they just kind of fell apart from there.
So that's for me personally. I think JDG even underperformed to even the standards that I set. I think this team, if they're playing at their peak like they did all year in the LPL for their 2020 season, I think that they could have at least made semis. At least, I think they have a high ceiling though. But I think this meta just really wasn't for them. Suning, we were talking about Suning actually making top 4. So I mean, they definitely made it. I think that this team is going to be on a lot of people's radars. But let's see, can they make the finals? Imagine Suning making the finals.
I'm actually pretty decently excited about it now. Like the thing about it is, top esports is a worse matchup for them because they're not as slow paced as JDG. So again, there's not going to be a lot of freedom for them to roam around the map. But they really like if top esports, like honestly, if we look at their laning phase and all this, and their kind of pick a man phase, we're going to see a lot of situations where I think is always going to be left open for them. Like there's going to be a lot of Galio situations, and I don't really think Knight likes to play that. Like we're going to see a lot of situations where I think they can get the winning matchups. Like, I don't like the way top esports is drafting. They got out drafted drastically in the first 2 games. Like the last 3 games, Fnatic out drafted themselves. Like I don't want to give too much credit. Again, their 4th draft, I think the ability to the mass amount of sustain they had was with Nidalee and what's it called was decent. But for the most part, I'm actually excited for this specific matchup. Like it looks like Suning's coming in hot, and top esports is coming a little bit faltering.
You know, even looking at my pick'ems, it kind of sucks because I chose D1 to win, but I put them to win over G2. But even looking back at it now, because Riot makes you choose them literally before. I wish they just took the quarterfinals pick'ems, made them their own, and then made semi-final pick'ems their own. Because seeing what we see now, I might actually lean towards Suning going into the top esports matchup actually.
You know what? I think the reason they don't do that, honestly, would be giving you 1 week a pick'ems for like week 1, and then week 2 you get a pick'ems.
No. It should only be for quarterfinals and semis because going into quarterfinals, they're forcing you to pick semifinal matchups.
When it comes down to most pick'ems in every single other sport on the planet does the entire playoffs do. Like it's just the reason they want to do it is because they don't want everybody to get it right. Like it would just be so easy at that point in time if you only had to do step by step.
So that's pretty much it for Suning versus JDG. I think Suning had a really good showing. Huan Feng had a insanely good showing, but I do want to caveat he does not usually play.
I don't know. He's level. One of the best ADCs. He's always been one of the best ADCs in the world. I just think that for the most part, usually he's not going to flank on Jin inside of their base. I don't really think I've seen that too often from him. He's more reserved.
That was like BM at that point.
I love that. That was game. That was so exciting. That was
game. Yeah, it was game. Yeah, game 2. Yeah,
game 2 or game 3. I don't remember.
All right, so let's go on to the only matchup that went to 5 games, which was Fnatic versus Top Esports. And looking at the first 2 games, Fnatic played really, really well. I think if you're Fnatic, you should go home with your head held up high. You put on a show. And the issue here is there was this one person, I forgot which caster said this a long time ago, because for best of 5s, when people always say a team should have won, it's not about how you start a best of 5, it's how you end it. Top Esports ended it strong. Fnatic started it off strong, but it's not about how you finish the race. It's about how you it's not about how you start the race, it's about how you finish it. That's kind of the saying it was supposed to be meant for, but just in a best of 5 turn. So Fnatic come out really, really strong with their Singed composition of Kindred, Galio, Senna, and Rakan. People just love Rakan this meta. It's insane.
Rakan is just the best playmaking support. That's why.
So a lot of people actually thought that Fnatic should have won this series, at least even based off Game 4. I thought they had it in Game 4 for a little bit there.
The big problem with Game 4 specifically, let's just run down one by one. I think the Game 1, I really like their comp. Again, I already went over it, but again, Singed into Ornn is just a disgusting counter. You can't do any. If Ornn is in range to W, Singed is in range to W Ornn, he essentially stops being a champion. His abilities to kind of shut out Ornn in the laning phase, because again, Ornn has a lot of trouble actually getting onto somebody, and the mobility that Singed has kind of keeps him away, so he's going to consistently shoving the wave on him, and again, Ornn is kind of at that point in time forced to CS at the tower. All around, Singed is a great pick, and they had a lot of good picks on Galio and all that stuff to where they could play around the map on that. Again, Galio is probably the most, in my opinion right now, probably one of the most influential characters in the game. That, I think another one I really liked was Game 2, where they picked, again, Sylas. They picked Braum to counteract the Sylas, because they picked Ornn to kind of bait in the Sylas, and then picked Braum, so essentially Sylas is negated for the most part. One of the most useful ults is taken away from him, because Braum can just stop it immediately. Game 4, again, I want to point, Game 3 and Game 4 are the big situations that I actually think it kind of went downhill. I agree. They picked a standard comp against them. Sion against Ornn. Sion is slightly favored in that, so 369 just actually completely dumpstered him. Actually just solo killed him in 5 minutes into the game, I think, right?
But it's weird because he solo killed him at level 6.
I don't remember. No, there was no ults. I don't think there were ults yet.
So here's my thing with Game 3. The problem with Game 3 is that you're taking a quote-unquote disrespectful draft, but I think Vel'Koz was a good pick into Orianna. That was the only thing I thought was good. Other than that, I thought most of the composition was pretty wonky, because you have Selfmade picking Kha'Zix because he probably thinks that Karsa is tilted from losing 2 games straight, but that was further from the truth. Karsa actually came back in this game really, really hard. He was invading Selfmade at every single turn. He actually invaded him at level 6 toward the Raptor camp, and that's what puts Selfmade behind. You can't put assassins like Kha'Zix can't really be put behind at 8 minutes into the game, because at that point your impact on the game only comes from flanking or getting off picks, and that's not going to happen when you're behind, because you're also down in items. And I think that Selfmade picking Kha'Zix over something like his Evelyn really, really threw off Selfmade's tempo in the game. I think specifically Selfmade could have probably got them a 3-0. But the issue here is Fnatic are taking a composition where it's how do I explain it before? It's like when you drive a car, and then when you drive a car, at a certain point you accelerate because you want to get to someplace faster. But then when you realize you're going to make it there anyway, you kind of take your feet off the gas pedal. And that's kind of what Fnatic were. Fnatic, to me, were a car that were going really, really fast, because they almost actually won the series, even by the other games. But they just kind of took their foot off the pedal because they thought that Top Esports maybe were mentally broken? Because why in the world will you pick a non-hard engage comp with just Rakan as your engage?
They had a lot of it. Like, I want to point out the reason they picked this comp specifically. Again, they had a lot of long ranged engage. What their plan was to get into team fights with Ornn, Rakan, Jin, Jin and Ornn were going to be the big utility long ranged ults that can actually get people kind of locked up. They were going to use Rakan as that kind of person to lock them down. And again, with Vel'Koz, with all these ults going off, you can lock them down for a considerable amount of time, and then you can pretty much, like, he is the best single target, like AoE kind of shred. It doesn't really need items because he does true damage. He melts everybody. Doesn't matter if there's a tank or anything. Like, I get the concept of what it is, but the problem is, like, first of all, you have a lot of utility for what's it called? For JackeyLove. JackeyLove has a Karma on him. There's a Scion who has a lot of good dueling potential in top lane. So again, you have a losing top side now. Again, with Orianna is not going to lose the lane at the very least. So essentially, you're just scaling against each other, and you're kind of betting Nemesis against Knight at this point in time for some reason. I don't know why. Like, then we have Karsa, who just played incredible. Like, he literally was jumping in and out of the fights, coming back and forth. And I just didn't know what to do at that point. So, like, there was, like, the reaction speed at which he was able to do all this stuff, on top of the fact with Ezreal too, I was just genuinely impressed. Like, I wasn't expecting too much from this comp, but at the same time, like, from a Fnatic's comp again, because, again, they have to straight up team fight them. This is a comp they built not to do anything. It wasn't to counteract Top's comp. It was specifically to go in on them and team fight. And that's where they kind of messed up, because they forgot, like, they stopped playing like they were the underdogs and started playing like this was an equal kind of situation for them, and that's why it just didn't pan out.
Yuyanji, he was playing so bad, they just put him on Karma, and I was like, okay, if you're putting him on Karma, that's like just tell him, hey, you need to stop feeding.
That's the big problem with this team mostly, is the fact that Yuyanji has a lot of good situations where I think he plays well. For the most part, he's the obvious weak point of this team, and you can always target the bot lane because he is very terrible.
Even JackeyLove. Reckless showed you can easily beat JackeyLove if you play out your lane with
it's the weaknesses that Yuyanji actually exploits that makes it kind of hard. Again, on top of the fact that you don't actually have to rely on, like, ADC skills more so as you can actually just use the ability to CC and all that stuff. Like, all around, like, Reckless is a worse ADC, like, just purely ADC style than JackeyLove. I think that's really, like, it's pretty obvious for the most part to most people. Like, he's just all around his ability to DPS and all that stuff, but he has a lot of good qualities when it comes to, again, he's still a really good ADC himself, and his utility is what the big difference maker right now. He's able to use the abilities an ADC is able to dish out and use them very effectively. But all around, we're not going to see that game 3 where he eases into the enemy team and kills everybody kind of thing that JackeyLove was able to do, or dish out all that damage, get out at the last second and not die. Like, I think that was a big problem that I had with that. Like, again, there was like, it just straight up, when they wanted to play a team fight comp, they were just completely outclassed. Instead of just trying to look for these early game team fights and trying to counteract it, they just got completely, like, dumpstered. And then we get to game 4, and they pick an incredible comp. I really, really was impressed with, like, this is the one comp that I think surprised me, because I actually thought it looked terrible on paper. I was like, they're picking a lot of fast pace, but, like, what is the whole point of it? And then we get to see it in action. And with Senna and in Italy, there's so much sustain. Like, it's massive amounts of poke with all these characters. Like, you really can't get onto Senna because she's one of the longest range ADCs at this point. There's a massive amount of healing going on. There's a massive amount of poke going on. And if you get on top of him, like, what's it called? Like, Tom Kent is able to eat whoever you get on top of. And Sion's just a massive tank who just does a lot of damage. Like, the reason that Selfmade, like, this is the one game that I think they got drastically outdrafted in. Like, I was surprised. Like, they even got the Galio, which I think was Nemesis's best character. I mean, even then, like, Nemesis straight up walked in on, like, Knight and was able to kill him level 1 or level 2 or 3 with
Orianna or Lucian?
With Selfmade. No, he had Galio, and just walk into the lane and kill him. Like,
I don't really know. Like, this series was interesting to say the least, but I think that Fnatic had I still think they had a good shot at winning, though. I think that they actually underestimated Top when they got the lead. I think they actually thought that Top were just done, and nope, turns out they're just going to keep going. And that's the problem with some of the Western teams, is that when they kind of overperform to some expectations in a best of 5 that probably even they thought weren't even possible, it kind of gets to a point where, okay, this is the reason why Top are one of the best teams in the world, because you see games like these. But now, if these were best of 1s, it would be like, well, Fnatic's clearly the better team, but in a best of 5, we know that it's still Top that's the better team overall. But Jackie Love is going to be a weakness for Top Esports moving into the next round, along with Yu Yanji. I mean,
It's
Yu
pretty
Yanji
much
set a
just
record.
Yuanji, dude. Like,
he set a record for the most deaths at 15 minutes of World's history.
I'm just gonna point out, like, Jackie Love is a better at, like, Huang Fong, when it comes to just highest skill ceiling, Jackie Love is the better ADC. But Huang Fong plays incredibly well. Like, he can't keep up with Jackie Love at his peak, but he's definitely better than him in a lot of situations. Like, there's a lot of situations where I've seen him be better than
Most
him.
people are gonna like want us to talk about like Nemesis. Don't worry, guys. Rift Insight will be on Monday or Tuesday. We'll go over Nemesis. And for the C9 Fancast, I lost the episode. We were talking about TSM in depth. We'll go more in depth into TSM and our semifinal previews. But yeah, we'll talk about Nemesis a little bit later, because I think that's a lot to discuss. Because I think a lot of people were being too hard on him, but we're also like, he had so many apologists come out for him, and it's kind of mitigating how bad he was, just because people don't want to make it seem like he was the worst player. That's how I see it, but
I think, I mean, it's the whole point of it. Again, I want to touch on it a little bit. I think Nemesis played the Galio games pretty exceptionally well. I think he had a lot of good engages, and he was reactionary. Honestly, if you want to carry mid laner, that's obviously not the way you want him to play. His Twisted Fate was terrible. I did not like his Game 5 Twisted Fate.
I mean, Karsa and Knight played that really well. I think that was more Karsa and Knight playing the early game gank stuff really well.
They just literally didn't build any tanks, so why not just go Vladimir? I mean, again, Gangplank goes well into Vladimir, so it's like both of them are free farming, but Vladimir just is infinitely better in team fights, unless he gets a massively good barrel off. You just kind of set yourself up to have the losing matchup there. I don't know. I didn't like that. Honestly, I don't really think that Top Esports drafted well. They just kind of got a free Vladimir game. You can easily play Vladimir into this situation. I don't think the Vladimir was very much kind of relevant, as I would say, but at the same time, you shouldn't allow this kind of comp to be existent. No tanks at all. There's singular items of defensive items, but for the most part, there's not really any defensive items, and Vladimir could just melt them if he goes to late game. And it's a Gangplank top, so there's not going to be any real pressure generated. Even though Whipple was able to solo kill him, it didn't really stop the kind of methodical, slow-paced scaling that Vladimir had, and it just kind of went out of control. This Knight was able to play insanely well in the Silas, and again, stop giving.
He played really well in the Jace too.
I'm just saying,
later on during the series, you clearly saw Fnatic making mistakes. There was this bot lane dive they were trying to do. Hylissang didn't use his ultimate one time in that whole skirmish that they had when they all hit level 6, when Reckless got the solo kill on the Jackie Love. Hylissang did not use his set ultimate. You could clearly tell Fnatic were playing worse as the series progressed. Maybe they just came in on a high and they were
honestly, they played to their standards in some of the team fights in the game 3, and that's kind of probably got in their head. You play moderately well to your abilities, and then you get completely outplayed because the pure raw mechanics of the enemy team is so high. I don't know. I mean, I can see why it would frustrate them. At the same time, don't know why you keep letting Karsa have Lee Sin. That was just weird to me.
Lee Sin's his literal best champion. That is auto ban. That's like giving freaking Selfmade Evelyn. You just don't not one game did Selfmade get Evelyn, because they knew if he got that pick, he would take over the game. I don't know why Fnatic I guess they were just willing to give it over because they thought they could easily take care of it, but that's not. They've probably never seen Karsa play Lee Sin, which is sad because they definitely lost. But if you're a Fnatic fan, don't feel bad about this. This was a great showing for Fnatic, and a great showing from the West too. The West is always getting put down that they can't stand up to the Eastern teams, but
it's just
this series, it probably is just an A. But at least this shows that the West can do it. It's just it needs a little bit more. They need to just they need a few more things to be better for Fnatic. They need a few more things to go their way in a few of the skirmishes and a few of the team fights, and they could have had this series. But you know what? This is better than their last series against FPX, which was last year. That was terrible. But Bwipo, I think Bwipo was the over Nemesis. I think Bwipo played pretty bad. Like people were ragging on Nemesis.
Yeah.
I think Bwipo played
Bwipo got
really
some
bad.
credit because he got that solo kill in game 5, but again, that's just kind of
That's just like
just kind of
casual
how
hindsight.
it's just
That's just
gangplank into
that's a,
Vladimir.
I mean that's just casuals. Casuals see that stuff
Well, I
and,
just
and
think
they
all
overblow
around,
it.
like, I think that he had an effectively lower effect on the game than 369 in every single game. I think he was probably the most outmatched in his lane in most of the situations. Like, I think Scion, like 369 in pretty much most of the team fights was just insanely impactful. I just never, like, I don't think Bwipo got to that point besides his what's it called? I think he had a few good Ornn ultimates, but for the most part, I don't think he played pretty much well the entire series.
Right, last series of the World's 2020
Oh
quarterfinals
my
was
gosh.
GenG versus G2. Caps clapped GenG so bad they're now in Korea.
I just want to point out, like, I don't know what was wrong with Gen. Like, again, I expected G2 to win this, but, like, if you can
For
look at
your
the.
pick'ems,
What's up?
for your pick'ems, you probably had GenG, didn't you?
I don't remember. I thought I put G2. But, I think the big problem with this right now, it's not an unexpected result. If it comes down to it, like, I'm looking at this game and I'm looking like if we look at a lot of the failed like misexecuted like engages in the first game from Gen G with Callista Tarek and they go in and then they just don't do anything like they messed up. Tarek goes out way too far, ults too late because he's inside Callista ultimate, so he dies before the ult comes down. No one else can follow up on his stun ult like stun knockup like. I don't know what was going on. Like
The issue, these are issues I saw in the LCK. These are the
this
issues
didn't
I
happen
hope
in the LCK. Like whatever
they
this was.
they consistently they have bad synergy. Like I told people, they have bad synergy. The laners do not play together. It's literally like
No, their
you
team
said,
fighting was never this bad. Like
their
I
team
think
fighting was always pretty good. But the issue
this
here is that it takes a bit of time to get to team fighting. Their skirmishes were
that was
always
all team fighting that they misexecuted. I think the big problem that actually I had with GenG, which was actually just so aggravating, so frustrating, was the fact that they got leads in the first game. They got the lead, they got like a few thousand gold, and then they just stopped existing. And they just let G2 do all the initiating after that. Like they're like, we're ahead.
Picture it like this. Picture it like this. Genji, or the picture of them as two girls. Genji is the girl that just wants to do missionary and just wants to love you and just make love to you. G2 is the bad girl who wants all the positions and rough sex consistently because they definitely banged Genji back home.
You proud of
Like
yourself with that one?
I told people like Genji have really glaring inconsistencies. I watched them all year.
See the
Seeing these inconsistencies is not surprising. What's super surprising is how badly BDD underperformed.
I think all around the team as a whole was terrible, dude.
Ruler trying. I'll give him credit there.
Ruler straight up 1v3'd one of the fights almost in bot lane in game 2. Like, they ganked him and he killed 2 and almost killed the jungler too.
He's so good. He's actually so good.
Perks, still a mega problem with this team. But, again, it doesn't matter because GenG essentially, they got the lead. This is how they work. They understood that the game is fast-paced. They think fast-paced means we gank in the first 3 minutes. Good idea, but you have to keep going after that.
They did the same thing at the 2020 Midseason Cup. Remember, they would get early game leads and just stop. They just kind of
it's kind of aggravated. Like again, they kind of get the basis of this meta, but they don't fully like grasp it, and that's the big problem I have with like GenG right now. Like GenG 100%.
No, don't run it. Don't run this lineup back.
I think they have some talent. I think they have talent.
Take away Life and Rascal. Why do you keep
Rascal completely manhandled Wonder in the first game. Like actually,
why does Rascal and Life need a spot in this?
Rascal was substantially better than Wonder for the most of the part until they fell apart as a team. Like
I still wouldn't keep him overall because
I would. I think he played well in most of the international situations.
GenG have world's winning aspirations. That doesn't happen with a player like Rascal.
I think
it doesn't.
I don't know.
He looks especially Life. Life was worse than Love Mal. How's that even possible?
No, Love Mal's a good support, but I think that the big problem I had right now, I think Rascal turned it on at the end of the season. I really had some like really big problems with him, but I think that he actually, again, he's not as good as 369 and all that stuff, and if you can get a better top laner than him, I would suggest it. But at the same time, he's probably, like in my opinion, one of the better performing top laners Like coming out of like Korea this year. Like I think that we look at what's his name, Doran. He was massively better than Doran at this World's Championships. Like he was solo killing people, like all around. Like he almost turned a top lane gank in his favor because he was completely up. Like I think I don't think Roach is the best top laner, but again, I think the big problem right now is not individual players. I don't think this is the problem with this team. It has nothing to do with that. It's the inability for them to know what to do past the early game ganks. Because again, Clid will get the early game pressure going, but where does it lead to? Obviously, like they don't know. Like GenG really essentially got those bunch of kills in the early game. Then they just secure dragons. Are like, we're scaling up, but G2 straight up collapsed on them, and that's something I want to give credit to. Again, they know how to punish complacency. Like when GenG started to like, we're in good shape right now, we're scaling, we have a good comp. G2 100% punished that and just kind of pushed, like once they got the lead, they never let go. I didn't see that G2 inside of group stages against Suning. They lost a massive amount of leads against them. And honestly,
well, that's the thing with G2 is that they just play better in best of 5. Some teams just play better in best of 5. Some just play worse.
I just think that when there's something on the line, they actually start caring more. Like it just really doesn't feel like they care. Like in some of these games,
I would say they care, because if they didn't care, you would see them bomb out of group stage. I think they care.
No,
it's just that
they're just
good enough. They don't show all their. I just don't think they show all their cards in best of 1. So there's no need to. If you have their type of talent, you can probably get out of every single group stage. There's no point in wasting all your cards in best of 1s. Like there's no point in doing that because you're gonna give away all your strats. I think it's better to show that in best of 5s. Now, when it like you have to really go all out, and like I mean, people had G2 beating GenG. So, I mean, it's not like this is a big surprise.
I think most people had this.
It's a surprise that GenG played actually worse than the standards that they were given.
G2, 100%, when it comes down to it, just looks like they looked like a better team, like specifically in this best of 5. They didn't look, again, they haven't looked good in best of 5s all year, though. They look bad in them. Like, all around this entire year, they've been dropping best of 5s left and right. So it's like, can you really rely on the old G2 to be able to bounce back? Because
they don't drop best of 5s internationally. It's a different thing. They don't.
Yeah, because that wasn't the same G2. This is a weaker version of G2 this year, and that's why I was a little worried. I was like, this G2 looked shaky the entire year. Like, you can't just use last year's G2 because that was a better, like a really well performing version. This year's G2 just looks so bad, and I was really worried. I was like, are they gonna drop G? Like they're significantly a better team than G2, like GenG. Oh, I think the Dodgers just scored.
Oh, but yeah, we're gonna wrap this up in just a little bit. It'll be like 5 minutes. So overall, I personally think that GenG going into the next season, like I like GenG, I like Ruler, but you know what? I don't think you're gonna be winning with Life or Rascal. But I think if you want to keep Rascal, you should probably kick Life because that guy is not good.
I don't know. I think if they want to win, they just need to learn how to. Because even if they got literally 5 Knight level players. Actually, no, they would probably win if that. Let's just go tone it down a little bit. If they got like really good players at every role, if they had like the talent of D1 Gaming, if they continually play the game the way they do, they won't make it out of like they'll won't make it out of quarterfinals. It doesn't matter how much talent they have. They just don't know how to play the game right now. There has to be a concerned effort to learn how to play the game properly. You're kind of muted right now.
Okay. What happened?
You're good now.
Okay, so for me personally, there's just so much issues with how they play. Like, Clid and BDD have terrible synergy. Like, going into next season, I think they have to fix that. Like, they have the same issues D1 had when they were first playing last year, or in the Challenger scene when I was watching their games in the Kespa Cup of last year. They clearly do not play together. That is a big issue. Like, you have Ruler literally Ezreal forwarding in, and then you have the jungler Clid just back there just sitting doing like nothing. I'm like, what is this? What level of disgustingness is this? Or Rascal, he just like runs in and tries to flank. No one's even close to him. He's going in way too early. Like, it just feels like they're never on the same page. And then you get games like these where you can clearly tell they're not on the same page. And Clid definitely, I don't know. Is it expectations from him? Because like on SKT, he was like one of the best junglers in the world. On GenG, I think he's still very good, but like you can clearly tell he's not playing as up to standard. Is it just the state of the game, or is it just the picks in the jungle? Because I don't think nothing's changed other than the fact that he's playing not to the standard he showed in 2019. With players he probably should be better with. I just think that GenG don't really have a plan from the coaching staff the way that T1 did for him, because T1 has a set way they want the jungler to play, and Clip played that style perfectly. With GenG, I think he's freely able to do whatever he wants, which I don't think he's very good at. I think he's better with a plan given to him, which is why I think he succeeded on T1. But with on GenG, I think they just go in thinking he knows what to do, and that's clearly not the case. It's clearly not the case. He literally got caught out consistently in the series so much that it made Jankos look a lot better than he did in the group stage. But that's just me personally. Okay.
I was just letting you go. I didn't know if you were done or not.
Oh no, I thought you just left again for the game. But that's pretty much it, everyone. He'll be on for Rift Insight tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, Tuesday. We'll have Rift Insight on. That way we'll go into TSM, because the last C9 Fancast episode, sorry about that. For some reason my audio wasn't translating over, which is weird because I knew it was, because I saw the audio bar on OBS and Discord go, but it happens, things happen, it's okay.
Was it your hearing or your actual talking?
Everything worked. All the mic was on.
Saying, like in the video, was it the sound or you talking or them talking?
It was me. When I played it back and I heard myself, I was not saying any sound.
It's a new mic. Come on, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, happens. It's okay. On Rift Insight, we'll go over TSM failing at Worlds. I do want to dive into that a little bit more than I did. And then we'll talk about Nemesis, and then we'll preview the semifinals tomorrow or Tuesday. Whenever you see the video up on YouTube, just hit the notification bell and you'll be notified. But it has been a blast doing the highlights reactions, though. Man, watching the top esports versus Fnatic series. Woo! That is League of Legends right there, where you're seeing one team down and out, pretty much off of the count, and just bouncing back 3 games in a row. Because that's the mentality with best of fives, is that you start really strong, but now when you start losing some games, well, now you're about to get reverse swept. Now you're 2-0 down. It's like, how did this even happen? But overall, I think that this is a good showing from Caps. I think that Caps is going to be an X factor if G2 take down Dan1. Now, next week, can Dan1 get the revenge against G2 from last year? Because it's very clear this G2 team, this Western team, can take out Korean teams, which is good to see. I think that's really good to see. This is still going down as one of the best Western teams of all time, if not the best.
It is the best.
If they make another World Finals, if they beat Dan1 this week coming up, if they beat them, this is the best Western team.
It is the best Western team already.
But this will cement it. Like, this will just pretty much cement it.
There's not really competition for them. They've had massive amounts of success, and honestly, I was reluctant to put them above 2015 for a while, but like there's so much talent on this roster. They're all stars. Like, it's such a good team.
At their MSI, they won. I'm just kidding. I'll see you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. I'm the Nightwing, and Wave Life Esports is signing out, guys.
Hi, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more stuff.
Yeah, thank you.